Welcome back to another episode of the Hurt Business Podcast. I'm your host, Faris Sharari, and today I'm very excited. As I say every episode, but today is no different. This past weekend was so stacked with UFC 322 coming and going. For me, this card had everything. It had everything, and I'm excited to break down all the big matchups on the main card, what they all mean for the divisions, a little bit about the earlier prelim, what happened there. I mean, Bo Nickal got a big head kick KO. Didn't see that coming. Wellmaker lost. Didn't see that coming. And then at the very end, we'll talk boxing with Conor Benn beating Chris Eubank in the rematch. And then Paul Joshua got announced. So I'll share a few thoughts on that at the very end. Let's get right into it. I mean, one of the biggest storylines leaving UFC 322 was Dillon Danis versus the entire fighting team of Dagestan, or as Dana put it, the entire Muslim Brotherhood. And that was funny. I enjoyed that moment, Dana, in the post-fight press conference. And he also said that Dillon will never be seen at another UFC event. One of those things that the guy wouldn't get signed. He says he's a fighter and he deserves to be in the octagon, and then does stupid shit like this. And everybody knows that that's the reason why he's never gotten a contract. It's because all the extra bullshit he brings to the fight game and how unnecessary it is. But shout out John Pork, otherwise known as Chanko, but he should be known as John Pork. Seen a few breakdowns. I watched the clip about 24 times. He was definitely putting paws on Dillon Danis. And then you see his hand all cut on the IG post. He did that, boy. He did that, boy. But that wasn't the only victory that Dagestan received that night, as Islam went up, and new in a second weight class. He went up and challenged Jack, and none of us can say we didn't see this playing out this way. Knowing Islam and his style and what he does, can you say that you're surprised? Because I sure can. And I know, obviously, he was my pick. He was a big favorite, so I'm sure he was a lot of our picks. But I felt like a lot of people last week were saying Jack has really good wrestling, which I'm not saying he doesn't, but is it at that level of Islam? And I just think that there was a disconnect there. People saying he defended so well against Bilal, so therefore he's going to do well against Islam. And that's just MMA, Matt, that never actually amounts to anything. It's just talk. And yes, JDM's wrestling looked good against Bilal, but can you say it looked good against Islam? 4 for 4 on the takedowns, and I believe they were all double legs. Islam somehow looked better at 170 in the octagon. He looked like just as big as Jack. He didn't look, there was no size discrepancy. And then you watch the fight play out the way it did. 5 rounds of the same kind of take you down and control you. And this wasn't the Jailton Almeida sort of control. I'm just going to lay here. This was more so I'm going to try to create damage. If there's one good thing I would say about Jack leaving this fight is he did defend the submissions really well. We know Islam as a finisher. He submits guys. It's just what he does. He has really dangerous submissions like the head and arm choke, which I felt like there was a few moments where he was searching for it. He thought he had it, but Jack defended, again, really well. And that never came to fruition, but he just couldn't stop the takedowns. And for a lot of casuals last week saying that because he defended Bilal's takedowns, he can defend Islam's. Where's that conversation right now? Because it shouldn't. MMA math doesn't. It's not a thing. And I was honestly feeling really bad for Jack. He just could not get going. He's a guy who usually moves his feet really well and uses his boxing and sets up big shots, but Islam didn't give him an ounce or an opportunity to set any of that up. He just stayed on the gas, took him down, stayed on top of him, and he honestly, on his back, JDM couldn't even do nothing. Felt like he just kept trying to get up, but you can't. You can't. Islam is literally a weighted blanket and just held you down, and you could do nothing. Nothing. And ultimately, I feel for that. And that sad face he had, like in round 4 and 5, was like just the cherry on top. This was a smashing for all these rounds, and you looking so sad. And yeah, and honestly, during fight week, Jack and his team really were growing on me. I was tuning into the vlogs he was posting on his YouTube channel, and they seemed like a fun group of guys. They were playing rugby in the park and in the gym, and they just seemed like a fun group of guys. Watching the behind the scenes of all the media that Jack has to do on fight week, and the in betweens, and their camaraderie, and their talk shit and joking, and they just give each other shit. They grew on me. I like those guys, but it's one of those things where you should have more wrestling heavy grapplers instead of non in your camp, right? You don't want the first time you deal with that level to be in the fight. And I'm not saying that there's daggy wrestlers available to kind of give you that glimpse that Islam presents, but you kind of need that. You know, the ordinary training partners, the Craig Joneses of the world. Although I'm a huge Craig Jones guy, I find him massively entertaining. He can only do so much, and he just felt like he was just in the corner just to be there. And he honestly, yeah, it's more so jiu-jitsu grappling he poses than wrestling grappling. And I think Australia needs a little bit more of that wrestling grappling, because currently Dagestan's up like 5-0 in these big championship fights. So they gotta do a little adjustments, maybe seek out somebody who wants to trade across the pond and trade to the other team, and maybe give you guys some different insight. But currently, the approach of not having a big, strong wrestler in your camp is shown detrimental in the octagon, because Jack could do nothing. He just unfortunately laid there. And it's not like he wasn't trying. He was trying to move, trying to get up, trying to move. But you're as good as toast with Islam. You're as good as toast. With butter, of course. But Islam and it's something that Khabib never was able to do. Never went up that extra weight class and captured the second belt. So this does set him apart. Legacy-wise, it only adds to the story. It's such a big win. And Islam all week was getting love from the New York crowds, which was cool to see. I felt like he never, ever received that in any city ever, you know, in all his championship fights. And he even acknowledged it and it was thankful for it. But it was cool to see somebody finally get some praise after all these years of domination. And now he got a second weight world title, and it's awesome. It's awesome. He seemed calm all week, happy, making jokes. Maybe he didn't have that stress of cutting 50 pounds on fight week to make 55. He just, you know, could calmly make 70. And it's not like he cut 0 pounds, but he didn't have to drop that extra 15 and nearly kill himself. And he looked a lot fresher in the ring or the octagon. So Islam might have been a welterweight all along. He might have been a welterweight all along, dominating the lightweights the past decade. So we might be tuning into a second run for Islam, or a continuation, right? Because he never lost. I think now he either tied Kamaru or surpassed Kamaru for the most wins in the UFC. I think he's one shy of Anderson Silva or something like that. But those are the top 3 currently. And on that topic, you know, while we're here on Kamaru, congrats to Islam. I'm ready to move on from that. But while we're here on the Kamaru topic, what a strange fight week he had, huh? I feel like there were multiple interviews where he came out, declared himself the #1 contender, and that's what all these guys should do. And he is coming off a big win against Joaquin Buckley, but especially leaving Saturday night with the 2 young welterweights finishing their opponents and top 10 guys in impressive fashion. There's other names on this list other than you, Kamaru, unfortunately. And I think you might rank 6 or 7 on who should be next on my list. And I'm going to get into it. But to me, strange fight week for Kamaru. Made a lot of cameos, showed a lot of face, called himself pound for pound still. And now that Islam won, he's campaigning as pound for pound versus pound for pound, which 100% in his prime, Kamaru for sure was the pound for pound king. But then you lost to Leon twice. And what happened to Leon? That's unfair. But yeah, I just think there's a little bit more work to be done for Kamaru. And the rumor is he turned down Bilal Muhammad for the Qatar card. So You're turning out fights against I think Bilal's number one. You're turning out fights against the guy who could solidify you as the absolute contender. Those are the fights you're turning down. Main event in Qatar, your Muslim brothers, you know what I'm saying? It could have been a big moment. It could have been a big moment. Yet you choose to make videos and podcasts and declare yourself pound for pound still. It's cringy. I don't like it. It's not for me to like, but Kamaru, unfortunately, you still rank amongst, you're still maybe like not on the back of the line. You're not 15, but you're definitely not 1, 2, 3, or 4. Respectfully. Now let's talk about 1, 2, 3, or 4. For me, if you ask me, and I'm gonna go Weili and Valentina just right after this. I just feel like the flow of the welterweights, it just makes sense to continue down this rabbit hole. So let's talk about it. For me, the number one contender is Belal versus Ian this weekend. This Qatar card is going to determine, especially if either one get a finish. I know it's a 3-round fight, so it's more than likely going to go the distance unless somebody gets caught, but I don't see it. Anyways, I see that fight being the number one contender, and here's why. Belal, obviously, this is his first fight since losing to Jack, former champion. Before losing to Jack, how many fights did he have in a row? Think about that run. Before you're so quick to dismiss and disrespect Bully B. Yeah, he lost to Jack. But look at the run. All the way up to a champion when nobody thought he would. And then on the other side of the coin, Ian, look at the run he's been on. Yeah, he lost to Shavkat. But where's Shavkat? I feel like he won that fight and then disappeared and then came back, said he was going to fight, got injured. And now he's like a mythical creature at this point. He's even still exist? Shavkat is on my list. Somehow ahead of you, Kamaru. But anyways, I regress. Ian has beat Carlos Peratas recently, who is ahead of you, Kamaru, also. After his big win, obviously. But anyways, Ian has showed that he's championship tier. He's top of the class. He has all the promotability. He has a social medias. He has the mouthpiece. He has everything you would want. And he's getting wins. And if this Saturday he beats Belal, how could you tell me that Kamaru's ahead of him? How? Joaquin Buckley? It's different. It's different. It's different wins. If you beat Belal versus beating Joaquin Buckley, different wins in 2025. Joaquin's a beast, man. I'm excited to see how he bounces back, but it's all numbers, dog. Let's talk what makes the most sense for the divisions currently. So that's my number one. Whoever wins this weekend in Qatar with the welterweights, that's the number one contender for now Islam's belt, which Belal might not even want that if he wins, right? We've seen him say for years that he wouldn't fight Islam out of respect, out of spending all the time with the camp, being, in a Muslim brotherhood, as Dana said. They don't want to fight against each other. Understood. But now it's a different story. He has the belt in your weight class, Bully. You might have to answer a call if you beat Ian on Saturday, which I deem very possible. Number 2 on my list, after Saturday night, the absolute most entertaining welterweight, Carlos Peratas. Carlos Peratas is absolutely 100% the most entertaining welterweight in the world today. And it's not only the fight style. The guy talks a good talk. He does the cigarettes, which we shouldn't promote fighters on smoking and partying. But the fact that this kid does all this and still smashes former champions within 2 rounds, it's like, what are we talking about here? You know what I'm saying? What are we talking about here, coach? And Peratas, he's just no stranger to knocking out guys who've never been knocked out before. But I will be honest, a few of these finishes came by surprise. This is one of them for me. I knew it was very possible. I thought it'd be kickboxing versus Muay Thai. And then the first round, Leon threw like the grappling, the takedown attempt, and Peratas had the classic stone face while he was just getting punched on the side of his head, Leon on his back. Awesome moments. But yeah, Peratas fought that point really well. He knew Leon's grappling was shit, but it was interesting, right? We thought it'd be a Muay Thai versus kickboxing sort of fight, and then Leon's like, we fight in MMA, bud. Which, if he stayed with that game plan through the rest of the fight, maybe a different outcome, but Peratas started barking, and felt like got into Leon's head at some point, and Leon started just striking with him. And yeah, Perates had a beautiful game plan. Throw a lot of early low leg kicks, stop Leon in his tracks, and just find him with the 1-2, pop, pop. It was honestly beautiful. It was a beautiful KO, and it's unfortunate. I was honestly a little bit sad for Leon. I'm not a big, I haven't been too friendly on Leon over the years on this podcast, but it's sad to see a guy get fully stoned like that. A guy who's, so talented, ultra confident, and just faced a better man, I guess. A guy who was a little bit more ready, possibly. A guy who was a little bit more disciplined on his game plan and approach. And there was a point earlier in fight week where Chael had an amazing point where Leon is as amazing as he is. His biggest downfall is not having enough trust in himself. And Leon was asked this and he dismissed it instantly. And I'm like, Chael might be on to something here. And then for Perates to just bark a little bit and stone him is crazy. It was crazy, but it was beautiful to see his legs go and then the arms go. And then it was, for a moment, it looked like he was smiling. And I was like, what the fuck? And then boom, good night. What a win. What a win. Now, while I say all this, while I do deem Perates as currently my number 2 on who should get Islam, I don't think that I'm the most entertaining fighter in the division is enough to give you a title shot. You have to have finishes. You have to have wins. You have to have faced adversity and came out on top. You've had to have had difficult situations on this rise. And Carlos has been in all those spots, losing to Ian, fighting a KO artist, knocking him out, fighting a kickboxer who's never been knocked out, knocking him out. What a run. What a run. I don't think Perates stands much of a chance standing across from Islam after what we've seen him do to Jax, Striker, yada, yada. That fight ends in smash-ation, if I had to guess. But over who should be next, Perates is my number 2. 3, the other young welterweight from the card who got a first-round knockout. And this was the one I was absolutely most surprised by. I didn't see this one coming at all. And I should have whenever Sean Brady entered the octagon with those knee pads or knee sleeve things. I was like, well, what's that? Usually when guys wear that, it's usually for an injury or something was tweaked and they're trying to hold it together. It's usually a bad sign. Point being, it's usually a bad sign. And then he just still just got clipped. He just got melted. He just got hit. And we know Sean Brady's a guy who doesn't like to be hit. But this one was a little scary. And I thought as the grappler, you're gonna shoot, you're gonna try to make it bring it to your realm. But it was rough. It was rough for Sean Brady. He didn't even get that opportunity. Couldn't even grab Morales. He just got pieced up. And that one was definitely a shocker by me. Shocker. As somebody who I thought Brady maybe had done enough after his Leon fight to get the next title shot. And his style is so fun against Islam style, but now we'll never see it. I guess never is not a word to use in MMA or fight world, but it's not next for Sean Brady, unfortunately, after getting smoked like that. And for Michael Morales, as impressive as a win as that was, I still don't think there's enough of a sample size for me to say this is the next guy. He has 2 massive wins in a row. He has I think 19-0 after this fight. Like the kid has on paper possibly the best argument, possibly, but in terms of what we've seen, I just feel like there might be one more for him, which forces me to think the absolute inevitable and the craziest possible matchup I think you could make at 70 to deem the next contender, maybe after Bully and Ian. Perates, Morales. Main event, Brazil. let's fucking run it. Winner gets the belt soon, unless it goes a 5-round war, and then it's like, all right, maybe these guys need to run it back, and then run it back. All right, but then after them, I've seen a lot of conversation about Ilya, and while I think that would be so insane to see Ilya versus Islam, just because it's kind of the fight we've been thinking about for the past probably 2 years since Ilya's taken this big stage. I just don't think that should even be a question. Ilya moving up another weight class to become the first 3-division world champion. I don't know. Especially in a time when there's so much left to do at 55. There's so much matchups there that just break my brain for Ilya, like Gaethje, like the winner of Hooker Armand this weekend, like the sanitizer boy Paddy Pimblett. There's history there. There's a bunch of fights at 55. Not saying Paddy Pimblett or Gaethje should be next for the belt. Make them fight each other's. But point being, there's still a lot more at 55 for Ilya to do. For us to even entertain him moving up to 70 to challenge another world champion is just like, come on, bud. Like, those are things you got to earn. Those are things you got to earn. And not saying Ilya is undeserving of anything in the sport, but the legacy is at 55 right now. If he slays all those dragons and then moves up to 70 and wins once and then calls it, maybe the greatest career ever. Maybe never catches an L, just keeps smoking people. Maybe the greatest ever. All right, that's a different conversation. But Ilya, I would put you behind Kamaru in my book, respectfully and humbly. But lastly is Shavkat. While I think Shavkat needs one more fight before even entering the conversation for the belt, to me, I still find that matchup a little bit better for. I find that matchup a little bit more earning or well deserved for Shavkat versus Kamaru. That's just my opinion. That's just what I think. I'm sorry, Kamaru. Traditionally, I love you, but I just think a little delusion has been in your sippy cup this weekend. The women flyweight championship was on the line. Weili moved up to challenge the perhaps now women's GOAT, Valentina Shevchenko. And real quick, just kind of on the whole GOAT conversation, I feel like this is a never-ending movement of the needle. And 4 years ago, we were talking about Nunes being the GOAT, which people stop. She still is in my book, 100%. Valentina poses a great case, but I feel like we can't be so fickle. We can't be so quick to have the next greatest of all time conversation. We should just let the greatest be the greatest, and then whatever's in front of us today, we should admire that. You know, if Weili captured a second world title, that's another great argument there. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. So now it just feels a little bit awkward to call Valentina the greatest, which she's one of them in my book. But yeah. Moral of this point is I just don't want to be so quick in talking about GOATs. And then when that GOAT retires, we're hunting for the next GOAT. And maybe that's just a sport we're in, but it's a little bit unfair to the GOATs and the future GOATs. Like, don't put pressure on them, but also let the old guys relish in their accomplishments. Now, Valentina, what a beautiful win. Flawless. People are gonna say she played it safe. Fuck that. It's a fight. She stood there. She was a technician. Everything she threw was perfect and flawless and landed. And Weili just couldn't really do much. And Weili's usually the bully. Perhaps that's why Valentina just stood there and was like, all right, bully, come bully me. But Weili just couldn't. She couldn't get nothing going, and Valentina dominated on all 3 levels. It's her weight class, and we're just living in it. Watching the fight, it was so evident Weili was a smaller fighter. She just, I'm not sure if she has the size for flyweight. She did fight a technician, and maybe she has success against other flyweights, but in this current landscape with Valentina reigning the realm, being the top, I just don't think that flyweight is in her wheelhouse, and that's fine. Right? We've seen Israel move up, lose, go back. and still be that guy. So maybe that's in Weili's future, and there's still matchups there that are favorable. She can go reclaim her title. Mackenzie's kind of renting it out for a little bit, but Weili can go back, and there's a bunch of other girls there who would make for fun fights. For Valentina, she hinted a few fights in her post fight. For me, the most entertaining was Kayla, where I thought Kayla can make 125. In what world is that? Like, we see this lady talk about near death to make 35. So 10 more pounds. Tax you 10 more. Talk about legacy, huh? So that one was a little weird. I think she did get called out by her, but it just for me doesn't really make sense. Natalia Silva was mentioned. That's a fun one. And then there's a few others earlier on the prelims. I guess I'll just mention it now since we're on the topic. Erin Blanchfield submitted Tracy Cortez. Maybe Erin Blanchfield next. Could make the case. Big finish, top 10 gal, you know. And Blanchfield's on quite the run, right? She's young. She's doing everything by the book, finishing people. The only thing, if I may pose a bit of critique for you, Miss Erin Blanchfield, I feel like there was a little bit of a missed opportunity on Saturday. I just think with the big crowd, big win, you get a finish, you have all these people listening, all these ears on the prelims of the championship fight on your weight class. You did name drop the championship and say you're closely watching and you should be next. That's beautiful. But I just feel like you should have gone on that mic and been like, Valentina, you're fighting everybody else but me. You're even fighting strawweights, which is a funny way to spin it, but a great talking shit point. And so, yeah, I think a little bit of a missed opportunity. I want to see a little bit more personality from Erin. She seems like a sweet person, but this is the fight business. We need a little bit, this is the hurt business. We need a little bit of a za from you, and we just don't feel it. I didn't feel it on Saturday, at least. But for Tracy, the streets love you forever. What else? What on earth happened to Beneil Dariush? What happened to that guy, huh? It was a strange one. He came out guns a-blazing and then got tapped and face first, landed on the very top of it, almost in like cartoon fashion. It was a little bit of a strange one, if you ask me. But a big win for BSD, who I think won a performance of the night bonus. Good on you. But for Beneil, maybe time to drop the gloves, man. I mean, 1-3 in the past 2 years, and the 3 losses you suffered have been first round KO. And the Charles one was rough, and then they just somehow progressively get worse. So Beneil, I love you, bud. You've given us some fun moments, but it might be time, brother. It might be time. But speaking of time, it's Bo Nickal time. And I absolutely will always mention this. I'm not a big Bo Nickal guy in terms of it's actually some hating shit. I like his fight style, maybe not fight style, but as somebody as decorated as that, they're always going to be the topic of conversation and big headlines. And this one was no different. I mean, kind of a dominating 3 rounds, and to finish the show with the head kick is impressive and insane. And then he gets on the top and just flicks off New York, double bird city for the MSG people. And I was like, damn. They were definitely booing him though. And I don't even think that was deserved because he was beating the shit out of Rodolfo. He was putting the paws on him for 3 rounds, especially that first round was bad, just getting beat. And it's somehow just the damage built up. And he set up that high kick beautifully. People are getting bored of just watching the domination, but Rodolfo, not to kick a man while he's down, but he was just there to defend the whole time. He was just getting punched and hit. And then ultimately he got smoked. And big win for Bo. Way to rebound after the RDR fight, which is aging like a really good loss, I would say, or not a bad one in terms of the run he's went on. And he is on a loss currently, but the dude fought like 5 times in 1 year, 4 wins. It's like, come on, cut him some slack. But yeah, big win for Bo. Congratulations. What else? I did not see Wellmaker losing, especially with the last minute replacement. I think that Eythan Ewing character, he got the kill on they said 60 hours notice or something like that. Thursday morning, fight Saturday night. You got to make the weight somehow. And I believe they're both bantamweights, but the fight got moved to 45. The guy made weight. He lives in LA, so he flew all the way to New York, cross country, showed up, fight a weigh-in day, showed up, made weight, and then put on the fight of his life. In a fight that I don't know, I definitely didn't see it playing out that way. I think as soon as the original opponent fell out, I almost dismissed whoever else they put in there. Whenever you find these guys on 3 days notice, 1 week notice, usually the quality isn't as high as the opponent they're facing. In this case, we thought so. And then Eythan Ewing was like, hold my beer. Let me show you these mitts. And it was honestly a sweet fight. I rewatched it the day after. Sweet fight. He boxed really well. He set up everything. And there was no moments where Wellmaker really could build off any momentum. Eythan would just stand there, take his best, and just counter, hit him with shots that Wellmaker didn't see coming, in awkward spots, landing double hooks, body shot, knees, just a whole bunch of big shots, and putting himself on the map on 2 days' notice. Wait, that's a debut if I ever heard one right there. Lastly on the card, Kyle Dawkins, man. Kyle Dawkins. I mentioned it on the last solo pod, the pre-show. Kyle Dawkins' story is one of my favorite stories ever in MMA. For a guy to make it to the UFC, and not be matched up the best in one weight class, and then ultimately, leave the UFC, go to the LFA, 3-fight win streak or whatever it was, all finishes, get a title, get the call, come back on short notice his last time, and then this one to submit Gerald Meerschaert in MSG. And I believe on the post-fight, he said he's about to have a kid soon, any minute. So it's like the stars are aligned for Kyle Dawkins, and what a story it is. So I'm here for it. I love it, and it's cool to see guys like that win. So congrats on the new gym, and congrats on the big win, and in the baby. Inshallah, a safe delivery and all that good stuff. But before I get out of here, I want to talk a little boxing, because Conor Benn beat Eubank in a 12-round round, dropped twice in the last round. Was a really, really bad sight at the end of the fight. Honestly, possibly saved by the bell. Maybe. Dropped twice in like the last 30 seconds and hit with big shots. It's tough. And there was no moment where I thought Chris Eubank was set up to win. You think about the weight class thing. Ben is a smaller guy moving up. Eubank's a bigger guy going down, and you tell me who would have a more difficult time meeting in the middle. It's always the guy going down versus the guy needing to eat more, right? Let's just think about it a little bit. And then the whole fight day rehydration thing, you can't exceed 170. It's all set up for Chris to lose. I'm a Conor Benn guy. I think the guy is a beast. He should be competing for world titles instead of these kind of shows, but they're selling out massive venues, and it's so entertaining. We need a trilogy. But this time you make Chris Eubank make the weight, yes, but the next day you let him get as big as he would like, hydrate, go. I got to beat you at your best, because that's the question. Chris Eubank is the bigger guy, but if Ben can somehow give him the freedom to rehydrate properly and then still smoke him, still beat him through 12 rounds or hit him with whatever, if he still beats him and that's how the trilogy ends, it's almost more valuable than world titles. I think they both made like 18 million collectively in the first two fights. It's like insane money that world champions aren't even seeing. So what else would you even do? And then Eubank walked out with 50 Cent, many men. Beautiful. I wish MMA and UFC did some of this. Just for the champions, for the big guys. Let you know what I'm saying? Let them walk out with the artist. It makes for such an epic show and moment. And maybe that's not what we're here for. We should be here for the fights, and less the entertaining and the music show and the theatrical. I could see that argument. I could. But you're gonna tell me that it wasn't cool as fuck to see 50 Cent walk out and hear Many Men being played? That wasn't cool. I regress. Lastly, in the topic of boxing, Paul versus Joshua has been announced for December 19th. And I know everybody's probably thinking the same thing. Why? How? Who agreed to this? What kind of drugs are Jake on? And I agree with all those questions. I'm asking myself the same thing. But if you ask me, here's how this plays out. It doesn't. It's like everything Jake does as of recently. It's just to kind of grab a little bit of the rub. It's to put your name in the mix with Tank Davis and Anthony Joshua and these guys as potential opponents. And now you sign the contract, yes, but this is all a show. It remains a circus show. It remains who's the biggest name, the biggest guy that Jake can face. And the size discrepancy in this one doesn't even remotely favor Jake at all, let alone the experience and all the accolades and all the time spent in the ring that Joshua has. And yeah, he's coming off a loss against Dubois, but are we comparing Dubois to Jake Paul? We seen what he did to Francis Ngannou, and Francis Ngannou has hundreds of hours over Jake Paul in the discipline. Not to mention the size. So with all that, for Jake's safety and health, I hope this fight doesn't happen. I really don't. Doesn't make sense. It shouldn't. Yeah, it's not even a world where I hope it does happen and Joshua smokes him, because it's not even remotely a possibility in my brain. I just think this is another one of Jake's many attempts, and honestly successful attempts, right? The Tank one was flawless. There's a Tank versus Jake Paul press conference on the internet right now. What world are we living in? The guy's 130 pounds and Jake fights at 200 plus. What are we talking about here? And this is just another one. Jake versus the heavyweight. And I think that they gave Joshua a certain weight that he can't exceed. Take away his right arm. Take away his ability to move left and right. Only back and forth, but you got to stipulate him that way. Otherwise, it's an absolute smoke show, and we will be smoking Jake Paul pack for sure. For sure. And for Joshua, Anthony Joshua, why are you entertaining this bozo? Why? Maybe you get some rub off of it, but at least I like to think you're still in the mix for a heavyweight championship, right? You're still kind of in the conversation. I still like to think of you as a top heavyweight and not a Jake Paul opponent. So, part of me is like, why are you entertaining this? And then I'm like, go, a lot of me is like, go fight, go chase Dubois, Joseph Parker, Zhang, go chase a real heavyweight. No, Jake Paul, circus show on Netflix, December 19th. All right, I regress. That's where the pod ends. Thank you to listeners if you made it to this point of the show. My name is Faris Sharari, and I hope you subscribe, like, comment, shoot me a DM. Let me know what you think. If you're a fighter and want to be interviewed, hop in my DMs. But yeah, that's everything. Until next time. Free Palestine.